Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov Chess Channel and welcome back to the FIDE Grand Swiss tournament in 2021. We're now in the round 8 of the super event, and before this round 8 Alireza Firouzja was the sole leader. He had half of the point more than Maxim Varshilagraf, more than Alexei, more than many players in the super event. And today really wild things happened. Alireza Firouzja had to play here against Krishnan Sasikiran, but here we had also a great direct duel between Maxim Varshilagraf and Alexei Shirov. And in the game between Maxim and Shirov, the game ended in a draw, which meant now that if Alireza wins now the game against Sasikiran, that he'll be the sole leader with the whole point in front of every other player in the super event. So it's now a huge opportunity for Alireza to make something happen, especially in this tournament, because we know the winner of the super event will make it to the candidates in 2022. So I'm dreaming a little bit, of course, but I think about chess many times through the whole day, and I really have a dream to see maybe a world championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Alireza. It would be, I think, something such an incredible event that would be. So that's why I'm dreaming a little bit. Maybe I'm rooting a little bit for Alireza, but don't be so harsh on me, because as I said, I'm also maybe just following some chess like you do. I'm analyzing, of course, some games, but I have also my wishes when it comes to this world championship matches and also some other games that we'll have to follow. So that's why I would really love to see Alireza playing in maybe in a world championship match, because Alireza has everything. Alireza has opening preparations. He can surprise you in an early stage of the game. He changes a little bit the opening theory. He doesn't play maybe the best opening line, but then he tricks you into some wild tactical lines. He has also great middle game strategies. He has also great end game strategies. So I think he has everything, and in the near future we can expect Alireza really to be at least on the second place when it comes to classical time format ratings, and we can also expect that he'll be above 2800 ratings points for sure. That will happen, I think, in the near future, and I think we can expect really Alireza to make it at least to the candidates, because he has, as I said, the realistic chances to win the super event. So let's check out now what happened now in this beautiful game here played by Alireza Firouzja and Sasikiran. It was, in my opinion, even the best game from the round 8, because here we had really some immortal and beautiful tactics. So be prepared. This was, as I said, simply the game of the day. So let's check out now what happened. E4 here played by Alireza. We have E5 by Sasikiran. We have knight to F3, and after knight to C6 we have now after bishop to C4 and bishop C5. The Italian game, we have the Gioco Piano. And okay, it's a very popular opening for both sides. Black has great chances, white has great chances to win the game most of the times. In, of course, top grandmaster level, these types of positions end in a draw, but you see how both players are basically great attackers. So that's why this game is beautiful, because also Krishnan Sasikiran played here really dynamic game. He tried really to surprise Alireza Firouzja. He tried really to create dynamics, and he tried even to win the games, which is really great also by the Indian player. So here move bishop to C5. We have now the classical system with C3, D3 and D4 are now main ideas. If you want to play more aggressive move, you play D4. If you want to go more positional into the game, you play D3. So here knight to F6, challenging, of course, the E4 pawn, and now Alireza goes into this calm line with the move D3. Here castling played by Sasikiran, and now also castling by Alireza Firouzja. And here comes already sort of a move that shows also Sasikiran's style of play, which is really great. Many times you see that black will play D6, H6, prophylactic ideas, A6, similar stuff, A5 are also opportunities. But here Sasikiran plays immediately the move D5, which creates now an open center, which is really wild. And you know how Alireza loves to play the open game. Alireza is a great tactician, Alireza is a great attacker. So I think he was very satisfied when his opponent played the move D5. At least it's sort of his style that he wants to play, because sometimes in this positional struggles, maybe Alireza is not the best of players. He's really in the top 3 at least, but when I watch maybe some more positional battles, I always think about Magnus Carlsen to be really the best positional player. But when it comes to an open dynamic game, Alireza is there. At least I think he's really a sharp attacker like Magnus Carlsen. So that's why I love the move D5 that also Sasikiran played, which meant that that now will have for sure a wild game. So after move e takes d5, knight to d5, and okay, we have now an open center. Black has of course the advantage because black has now a 4 versus 3 pawn majority. So black will probably make something happen on the king side with f5 e4 ideas, but the pawn structure that white has here in the center is also very cool because we have the flexibility to break and enter with the move d4. And this pawn structure, the c3 d3 pawn structure setup here, is called the Boluslavsky Wall, and the problem is always for black to find good squares here because it's a restriction idea. These two pawns are restricting the minor piece activity of black, so that's why it's not a lost game, because black has here of course a dominant position on the king side. Still white can break and enter, as I said, here also in the center of the board. So here after move knight to d5, we have rook to e1 attacking the e5 pawn, and here Sasikiran plays now the move bishop to g4. We have knight from b to d2, we have knight to b6 attacking the pawn, the bishop on c4, and now h3 here by Alireza, and the game becomes really wild. This position has been played really many times in chess history. This idea is not working. Knight takes c4, it's really a bad move for black because then white can play even d takes c4, can also play knight to c4, and then you have to make a decision after bishop to f3, queen to f3. I think with this pawn on e5 you have really positional problems. You could maybe try f6, but now in the near future we will break and enter with the move d4, even b4 b5 are opportunist, a4 a5. So here I think white has really a good game. So it's nothing that nothing special here for black. So although the pawn structure is simplified, the position is simplified, but here the engine for instance gives already a +1 evaluation for white. So here after move h3 we have bishop to h5, and here bishop to b3, here played by Alireza Firouzja, which wasn't maybe the clearest of lines because it's a dynamic game. After move bishop to b3, also the pawn is a little bit hanging. There is of course the opportunity to play bishop to b5, then the game leads into something like a6, and still of course you see bishop to c6 can happen, b takes c6, and then here in the continuation rook to e5. So that's why black has to play the game in a different way. Black would be forced to play something like bishop to d6, and I think both players again have equal chances to win the game. But here Alireza, like Alireza, he spiced up the position, played simply bishop to b3, inviting now black to take simply the weak pawn on d3. And actually, in my opinion, when I watched many times this position, actually that's what black should do. Black should probably play queen to d3, then of course you have this idea, maybe bishop to c2, then after bishop to f3, knight to f3, and here queen to d1, bishop to d1, the game becomes more and more simplified. Still in this position I think black is slightly better because black has gained the pawn. There is also after queen to d3 this line, maybe to play knight to e5, a discovered attack against the bishop, but then the game becomes really wild after queen to f5, here knight to f3, and at least white get his pawn back. So this is something in my opinion that white should not do, because bishop to b5 in my opinion is slightly better. It leads now into complicated game for both sides, but Alireza is Alireza, as I said, and here after move bishop to b3 was played. But here also Sasikiran shows that he wants to win the game because he played now king to h8. Of course he had the opportunity, and I'm sure that he knows theory in the Italian gioco piano. He knows that he can take here the pawn on d3, but he wanted to spice up the game. As I said, he wants to play this dynamic game. He wants to create this 4 versus 3 pawn majority attack on the king side. He wants really to win the game against Alireza with the black pieces, which was, I think, a brilliant idea for chess lovers, because when you watch chess games you need always 2 great players in order to make really beautiful chess games. So that's why I like really Krishnan Sasikiran's here continuations, because he wasn't scared. He wanted to really win the game against Alireza. So here from move king to h8 we have knight to e4. Pardon me, here attacking the bishop on c5. We have now knight to d7, which is now of course an idea. If you take knight takes c5, then knight to c5, and you're inviting your opponent's knight into the game. This knight in the center of the board are really dynamic pieces. The bishop is hanging, the d3 pawn is hanging, now everything is glued together, I think. So that's why here I don't like also here for instance white's position, because these 2 knights are simply 2 powerful pieces in the center of the board. Maybe it's a slight slightly advantage for white, but getting this knight is on such an active square where it of course can be maneuvered. If you for instance move the bishop to c2, I like always this route, sort of maybe knight to e6 and then knight to f4 could be also a great idea to get this knight further active. So here after move knight to d7, in the continuation bishop to d5 was played by Alireza. Here he wants simply to attack. Here bishop to c6, mess up a little bit the pawn structure, creating further weaknesses. And the problem is now, I think, in the continuation of the game, that this bishop is also protecting the f3 knight. And now what Alireza wants basically to do is play knight to g3, kicking away the bishop. Then you have to make a decision, and with this setup, knight to g3, knight to f3, the centralized bishop on d5 with this bishop active on this diagonal with the rook on the semi-open file, I think white has a great setup. So already something, it seems to me, that went wrong simply for black, because it's simply too much activity here already in the center of the board. Black's pieces are not so well placed anymore, they're not so coordinated, because Alireza didn't take out the bishop, he wasn't scared, and now comes, as I said, the critical moment in the continuation of the game. So here probably Sasikiran wasn't satisfied with this continuation, and he tried now an aggressive move f5, and I think, I don't know, I would play this move for sure, because let's flip the board. Let's go to the f5 move. Okay, here if we flip the board, it seems so that it's a great move, because we have now an activity with the bishop, we have now activity with the rook, the knights are centralized, we have now also great activity on with this light square bishop, but it's actually such a rushed move. You don't have to play the game like this. Now it was simply time to slow down the pace of the game a little bit. Now it was simply time to play something like bishop to d6 or bishop to b6. Bishop to d6 leads now, I think, into at least a better line here for black, because knight to g3 can happen, then bishop to g6, and okay, the game can be of course prolonged now also for black. f5 will come in one particular moment, but you don't have to rush it. You have to first improve all of your pieces. But here in the continuation after f5, Alireza calculated now this tactic. He played now the move knight to g5, and knight to e6 is coming, and there's simply not a good way to protect anymore the square. You can try maybe here queen to e7, then you get this one d4, and you see the problem is now the queen is where already the rook is, so if something gets cleared, it's a lost game here for black. So so that's why getting the queen on the e file is simply not an option. Here you could maybe try bishop to d6, takes, and here even this is working, knight to e5, because if you take now here bishop to d1, then you get this one, knight to f7, you have to play maybe with your king, and then we can simply take out the queen again with ideas of knight to h6. Even if you take here, of course, you see there's simply too much protection here around the square f7, so black is tactically lost. So instead of this move queen to e7, you could maybe try this one, rook to e8, to protect your e6 square, but then bishop to f7 happens, and you have to make another decision. You don't want to lose the light square bishop. Then of course after bishop to f7, knight to f7 is a beautiful fork. So you could also try different ideas. Maybe instead of these ideas, you could try here queen to e8, also to protect somehow the e6 square, but again we play knight to e6 anyway, attacking the rook, and if you don't want to lose the rook, then you see you're leaving your c7 unprotected. So it's not easy to protect this e6 square. So I'm telling you this because this move f5 was a little bit too rushed, and it was simply the critical moment of the game. And now after move knight to g5, black doesn't have any more clear protection of the e6. Basically from this point on, the game is a one-way ticket. And here h6 was played by Sasikiran. We have knight to e6, attacking the queen and the rook. We have queen to f6, and here Alireza simply takes. We have rook to f8. We have d4 breaking in the center, which is now very important, because obviously what black wants to do is now to play the move e4. It wants simply to open the f file. There is also great pressure. You see the bishop is very well placed here on this long diagonal with the move e4. Then the knight can come on e5. So Alireza has several positional problems, but he found now this brilliant move with this counterattack with the move d4. And okay, We have now e4, the counterattack. Alireza accepts the challenge because Alireza is a great tactician. He calculated everything. He's playing now already like a machine. Here the game, Alireza plays now really the best suggested moves by the top engines. Here after move d takes e5, now knight to e5. The problem is now you cannot counter take here. You cannot take the knight on f3 because you get simply rook to e6, and in one particular moment you have to move, of course, the queen to d8, bishop takes c6, b takes c6. The problem is now even bishop to h6 is an opportunity, even queen to d4 is an opportunity with ideas of rook to h6. So it's simply a tactical loss game here for black. So that's why after move d takes c5, Sasikiran tried to complicate the game with the move knight to e5, but here Alireza accepts the challenge, plays now a beautiful queen sacrifice. What actually is not a queen sacrifice, because a sacrifice would mean, of course, that we give up the queen for less material. But you see now what Alireza will gain in this tactical sequence. I cannot really call it a queen sacrifice because it's simply black is losing simply too much material for the queen, because here, of course, after bishop to d1, here we have knight to d7, again a new fork against the rook and the queen. Here after move queen to d8, we have now bishop to c6, which was now the correct move by Alireza. You see, as I said, he's playing like a machine here. If you try knight to f8, it's not so good, because here you get simply queen to d5, and now the bishop is protected. Although the engine likes again more white position, but this is not something that you should do. Alireza played simply the correct move, played first bishop to c6, which gives, of course, the knight a temporarily protection. And now after move here rook to e8, we have now rook to d1, and everything is glued together. And okay, here from black's perspective, you have to take, of course, b takes c6, but now when we evaluate the strength of the pieces, we have now a rook and two minor pieces for the queen, which means let's count points. Rook is, of course, worth 5 points. The knight and bishops are worth 3 points, so it means that white gained 11 points for the one queen, which is supposed to be worth only 9 points. So as I said, it wasn't a queen sacrifice. It was a brilliant tactical sequence that Alireza, of course, saw. And here after move b takes c6, here white has now a dominant position. What you need to do in this types of position, when you have maybe gained some material and when you don't have the queen on the board, then you want to have your pieces glued together, which means your rook and rook should be connected. That's the most important thing, rook connection, and then you should connect your pieces. So the knight should protect the rook maybe should protect the bishop should protect maybe this other rook. So it should be sort of a glued together position with all of these pieces combined protecting each other. So that's why you see how it's now easy for white to continue the game. Bishop to f4, queen to h4, and now Alireza simply grabs a new pawn, and here Sasikiran tries at least to open the position somewhere, but it's not the problem here. Alireza accepts the challenge, plays simply f takes e3, rook to e3, and now rook to d4. We have rook to e7, and now bishop to f4. Every move is in a new attack, and that's what I meant. You see, the rook is protected, the rook is centralized, the rook is protecting the bishop, and also the rook is protecting the knight. So everything is so glued together. In one particular moment, we can also play bishop to e5. So everything is simply stuck and very well protected. So after move rook to e2, we have now b4. We have queen to e8, and now rook to f1, queen to e6. You see, the queen doesn't have support. The rook is, of course, very active, but in one particular moment like this, here Alireza simply traded it off, and the queen is simply too alone. It's a lonely queen. The queen cannot attack the position further. Here, of course, queen to a2, but not a problem. Bishop to d2. But again, I'm pointing out the pawn is protecting the rook is protecting the bishop, the rook is protecting the knight. So the queen cannot attack these pieces further. The queen is simply without any help here. So here in the continuation, queen to e6, and now Alireza realized where he should attack, because he has now a 3 versus 2 pawn majority. What he wants to do is, of course, to create a pass pawn. So here a6, bishop to f4, we have queen to e7, and now Alireza simply pushed further, and now after move b6, he created a very dynamic pass pawn. Now b7 and b8 cannot be stopped in the continuation of the game. So here queen to b3, king to g1, here g5 was played by Sasikiran. We have bishop to d2, g4, and now after rook to b4, the queen has to move queen to d1, and here a desperate try by black. Black tried to decoy the king somewhere where maybe the king could be further attacked by the queen, but here Alireza simply accepted the challenge. He played now king to g3. We have now f4, king to h2, and in this position Sasikiran resigned, because whatever you do, queen to d2 leads now into this line. We have a b7. Even if you take, of course, we can simply promote a new queen, takes, and now this pawn will be taken, and then we move simply the knight and simply pushing the pawn further into a new queen. So brilliant game, but this move f5 was, I think, the start of Black's problems, because you don't have to play this move here. Bishop to d6, as I said, bishop to b6, perfectly fine, still slightly better maybe position for white, but unfortunately f5 was simply too rushed. So let's check out now also what's very important here, the current ratings. Here it's very important to recognize Alireza's rating progress, because now with this win Alireza has gained 14 points, and you see now he's on the 4th place. He is now in front of Nepomniachtchi, who is of course the world championship challenger against Magnus Carlsen. It's really a wild rating list. Alireza gained 14 points in such an elite top grandmaster level, which is really incredible. I think in the near future he'll catch up with Caruana and England for sure. And the cool part is, as I said, it's simply great that Alireza is only 18 years old, so this is not his peak level. We can expect Alireza maybe to be at his peak in when he's 25, 26 years old. So still Alireza has room for improvement, and now this Alireza with 18 years old is such a beast already. So imagine how strong he'll be maybe in 7-8 years, which will be, I think, a great era in chess. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas in the Italian game. If you want to see more games from this event, check out my coverage so far with some great games played by Alireza and some other great players. And if you want to see maybe the top Andens battling in their best chess games, check out my commented chess games played by computer series with some great games by Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.